One of the things that I think people need to talk about more is the pressure that this puts on the people around you, on your partner, on your family. Like, it's really hard for them too. And you read about Bulb's growth and you think, oh, what a success story! Everything must have been plain sailing. But I've made hundreds and hundreds of mistakes, and I feel terrible about that because it has impact on people's lives.
These are turbulent times. It's never been more important to know where your company's money is going. Let Pleo help. Their smart credit cards ensure your team can buy what they need to stay productive wherever they're working. You set spending limits and see in real time what people are paying for. Something doesn't look right? Flag it with a tap of a button. Take it from me, I've been relying on Pleo for years. It's so easy to set up and run, and keeps our money secure no matter what's around the corner. Head to pleo.io and sign up today. Hello and welcome to Secret Leaders. Today's guest is Hayden Wood, the CEO and co-founder of the UK's fastest growing private company, Bulb. They are the UK's biggest green supplier, having grown their members to 1.7 million and still growing. They aim to help its customers save money and emissions. Now, the company was founded in 2015 by Hayden Wood and Amit and it has grown rapidly since then to a team of over 700 people based in London, France, Spain, and the USA. The company aims to use technology to reduce costs, improve efficiency, and customer service. It supplies its customers with 100% renewable electricity from solar, wind, and hydro. Its gas supply is 100% carbon neutral. 10% is green gas produced from renewable sources like food or farm waste, and the rest is offset by supporting carbon reduction projects around the world. So, what does it take to build Britain's fastest growing company? We're going to find out today. Hayden, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Hello.
Now that I've said all of that, you don't really need to describe anything about what Bulb does because I've succinctly said it all. So we can just talk about other stuff.
Yeah, I'm just gonna. Can I leave now?
Yeah, pretty much. We've had our fill of you, mate. Thank you.
Dan, I wish I could introduce Bulb as well as you've done. I'm very envious.
Mate, I wish I could introduce heights as well as I introduce Bulb. So I completely understand the problem. Right, we're going to start things off with a quick fire round. Just to make sure you're warmed up and glowing, full of green energy. So, first question: cats or dogs?
Dogs.
British Gas or EDF?
British Gas.
Is that just pure because you're British?
No, I'm a European.
You are for another few months.
I think it's more of a state of mind.
Sure. Okay, Apple or Google?
Google.
3 years at LSE or 3 years at Bain?
Oh, tough one. They're both great and also quite similar. 3 years at Bain.
Okay, remote working culture or office-based culture?
Office-based culture.
And you're stuck on a deserted island for the next 5 years. What 3 things are you bringing?
I'd probably take a book, The Complete Works of Jonathan Swift. I would take a luxury, maybe a bath, even though I never really use the bath in general.
Yeah, no, it's super practical to bring a bath with you to a desert island. No water around.
And then I've wasted my second wish because I was going to say some kind of telecommunication device.
If it makes you feel better, I feel like you wasted your first wish as well, because instead of bringing a book, you could have just brought like a Kindle with loads of battery, but you just chose.
I presume that there was limited 3G on the island.
I just presumed, as the founder of Britain's fastest growing company and biggest energy supplier, you might have figured out how to make energy work on the fucking island, mate. Jesus Christ.
Well, that's why I didn't take any energy related things. I think a bath could be used to produce energy. We could create a little hydroelectric plant with it. Okay,
good. Now you're thinking. And what was the third item then?
Yeah, I think some sort of communication device, maybe some bottles in which to put messages.
Very good. Okay, I like the analog approach on the last one for sure.
As opposed to my totally digital bath.
Just in case. Yeah, it's very true. All right, we're going to crack on with the show. Hopefully we've got better answers coming up. I guess speaking from personal experience is perhaps more your kind of bag. So we'll see. LSE, Monitor Group, then Bain. So not a very uncommon route for a successful startup founder. I guess the question being, did you always have your sights set on this specific path? Like, what did your parents want you to do? What was your upbringing like, etc.?
It was more accidental than planned. I loved being a management consultant. I found the job fascinating, but starting Bulb was more of we just found this, Amit and I found this problem that we couldn't resist, and we had to work on it. And so that's why I sort of made that career change. When I was a kid, my parents wanted me to be a lawyer. They weren't super pushy, but that's what they thought would be good. I think because my dad was always just amazed at legal fees and just assumed that would be a great thing to do. But I am dyslexic, and I think having a forensic knowledge or understanding of words, which I think you need as a lawyer, is not my strong point. So yeah, I've spent more time in spreadsheets, and that's why I ended up doing what I was doing.
And do you have siblings? Like, what's your actual family unit like?
I do. I've got a younger brother, Reese, who is a founder as well, which is quite unusual, I think. He founded a brewery in Peckham,
which is called.
Thank you, Dan. Yes, Reese's Brewery is called Bianca Road, and they brew outstanding American beers inspired by his cycle trip across the US.
Okay, now talk to us about your, if you'll pardon the pun, light bulb moment and your inspiration for starting Bulb. Was that a long, slow journey of thoughts over a 10-year stint in management consulting, or was it literally a single spark of inspiration?
It was probably more on the spark side. So I worked on a project when I was a management consultant. It was a short project. I was maybe doing it for 3 months. I didn't spend a lot of time in. When you work in these jobs, I was at Monitor Group first and then Bain. Combined, I was working in consulting for 10 years. You work on lots of different clients in lots of different industries on lots of different problems. And I hadn't spent much time in energy at all. So I did a 3-month project in energy. And then my friend Amit and I, within our group of friends, we probably had 2 of the more corporate jobs. We would talk about work. And then as soon as he found out that I was working on an energy project, that's what we talked about, because he was an energy trader at one of the banks. And really the idea for Bulb, I remember, Amit and I had lunch on a weekday. He kind of came over to the part of town where the Bain office was, and we sat down, and it was that lunch where the idea for creating an energy supplier came from. So it wasn't a 10-year sort of plan. It was really, I did this project, and then about 6 months later, we had that lunch and then started working on it as a sort of project on the side.
And just like give us an idea, like, or rather play back that lunch, that fateful moment, because obviously, these are the moments that, that shape you as founders and completely change your course of your life, your destiny, etc. And was that a really exciting, motivating lunch together? Or was it sort of just like some throwaway comments and then this kind of idea that percolated and couldn't really leave your minds? And what were your next steps? So I guess really take us from that lunch up until raising your first round and how you went about that process from 0 to 0.5.
I'm so glad we talked about spreadsheets earlier, because spreadsheets a spreadsheet was the vehicle that took us from the lunch to the fundraise. So the lunch was probably, I would say, May of 2014, and we started our fundraise in January of 2015. What we did after that lunch was work out, would Bulb, by using technology in a way that other energy companies hadn't used it before, would Bulb have a cost advantage versus all other energy suppliers? Would we be able to supply renewable electricity to people's homes and not only cut their carbon emissions to 0, but also help them save money on their bills? We thought that if we could do both of those things, we would convince people to switch, and we would have a business that would have an impact. So in order to confirm that cost advantage, we built the profit and loss statement for an energy company, and we went through every single line. It ended up being a 500 line model. We built every single line for what our competitors would experience and for what Bulb would experience. And that was it. So we worked on that spreadsheet for about 4 months, 5 months. And then from that point, then we started to go out and share it with investors and talk about what our business plan might be. But everything other than the spreadsheet was sort of, quite, we ended up raising our seed round with a 15 slide PowerPoint presentation. That was it. That was all we had. We had the presentation and the model that we'd been working on.
And who did you go to? Like, how did you know angel investors? I mean, this wasn't really your world, but I guess if you come from a management consulting background, you might know some people that might be in the market for angel investing. Like, what was your approach to get into this space?
Yeah, so this is where, we just went through. Amit and I'd recently both been married. so we spoke to all the people, all the friends and family that we knew, saw if they were interested in investing. I found that really intimidating, the idea of losing the money of some of my friends and family from a failed business investment. I found petrifying. We went out and spoke to those people. By that point, we were both confident that we could break even. Our original plan was to add 20,000 customers a year, and we were confident that we could do that. We would do that by taking a tiny sliver of the total number of switches in the market. We were really supported by this the UK government scheme called EIS, which is the Enterprise Investment Scheme. It means that there's a tax break for people who want to invest in new businesses. And we just went out and spoke to a lot of friends and family. And Amit's former colleagues from when he was an energy trader at one of the banks were the most important angel investors that we had at the start. They provided a lot of the funding, and I think that they understood the industry a lot better than the average person does, because they've been working in it on the wholesale trading side for a long time.
And what was your actual process with I guess my question would be, what was the pitch? Do you remember it? This is always quite good fun to try and remember what the hell you were actually saying to people to get their money. Or what was the elevator pitch almost? And then how much did you actually raise at seed? And then just to take us through a snapshot, what have been your funding journeys since then? And then we'll come back to this moment just to give some idea of how things have moved.
So the pitch was, energy's broken. Customers are really unhappy. They're overpaying. Energy suppliers are using old technology. They're very disorganized. They're unable to change. They're uninterested in changing. And we think that we can create an energy supplier that meets these unmet customer needs. The other really important part of the pitch was we saw a change in the way the energy system was going to work. So back in the 80s and 90s, you had these hugely centralized energy systems, large power stations outside of cities, producing power using fossil fuels, shipping it over a grid into people's homes. And people's homes were they would just import energy from the grid, and people didn't really understand what their usage was. But that was changing. We saw that all the new technology from solar panels and batteries and smart meters changing the relationship that homes have with the grid. And this is we had this chart that we spent a lot of time talking about in our presentation, which is the home of the future, where there are solar panels on the roof, there's an electric vehicle in the driveway, and that home would need an energy supplier that it could trust, because its energy needs would need to be managed. It wasn't just importing energy from the grid all the time. That home, that customer would be exporting energy onto the grid sometimes. And in order to provide those management services, we thought that a modern energy supplier was required. And that was the combination of our cost advantage and the changing nature of the industry. That was what gave us the courage to launch. We raised £1.3 million. We put our own money in as well. I think that meant a lot for our investors when they found out that we were investing our savings into this. And then that we knew that was enough money to get to we thought that was enough money to get to 23,000 customers. And at 23,000 customers, we thought we could break even.
It's still quite aggressive, 23,000 customers. It's not a small amount of people if you consider what Bulb is. It's not 23,000 people just buying something. It's 23,000 people changing something they find to be a pain in the arse, even calling up to change in the first place. So I get that it's super sticky, but it's really interesting that that was an initial target because it's suitably aggressive for venture scale, but arguably too aggressive. It seems quite hard.
I mean, it was hard so we launched, and in the first 6 months, we had this product. It was great. It was saving people money. It was cutting their carbon emissions. It was a really simple sign-up experience, and no one switched. We were getting like 10 switches a week. We just weren't getting any traction, and it was really worrying because we were thinking, well, good grief, we have to sign up 23,000 customers in the next 9 months, and we've only got 300. And I remember that first year was just so unbelievably stressful because we were running these growth experiments, trying to get people to change. And I remember at the time thinking, this is quite difficult because we're asking people to take something that they really care about deep down, which is, is their heating going to come on? Are the lights going to come on? And we're asking them to switch from a big supplier that they know they're not happy with, but at least they know that the lights are going to stay on and the heating will work, and they're risking that and switching to this completely unknown supplier. And a lot of the feedback we got in the early days was, sounds too good to be true. Like, where's the catch? Doesn't make sense. Why are you doing this? Why hasn't somebody else done it before? So we, I remember we had days when we would go into, we went into the canteen of KPMG one day and tried to get people to switch there. We thought, we'll do like face-to-face sales. We'll see if that works. We'll do an experiment. And we got like one person to switch. And it was the person we got to switch was my old housemate from uni, who I bumped into in the canteen. That was it. It was really tricky. What we learned though through those experiments was that you need to have trust. You need to have all these trust indicators through the sign-up process on your website. People need to see third party, other reliable sources give you a recommendation in order for you to switch. We discovered that word of mouth was very important. And as soon as you get over those initial barriers, then people would open up. By the end of the first year, we were getting to the sorts of sign-up numbers that we needed. And then the volume, it ended up growing geometrically. And we ended up signing up a lot of customers through some of the big channels like price comparison sites and collective switches. And so after the first, it was all backloaded into the last 3 months, but we hit our 23,000 customer target.
That is incredible. This podcast is brought to you by Klaviyo, the growth marketing platform most recommended by other business leaders and the one we use at Heights to send our Sunday brain health newsletter. In uncertain times, supporting your community and fostering relationships by being open and empathetic is a strategy that's going to be appreciated and remembered far beyond today. Now, one of the best channels to deliver these communications is always going to be email. Email marketing is one of Klaviyo's foundational offerings, and when you leverage personalization driven by a 360-degree view of the customer, you're going to create memorable marketing moments that cultivate lifelong relationships with your community. Now, Klaviyo truly understands how challenging it is for each and every one of us entrepreneurs to get our businesses off the ground, let alone navigate trying times like these. Klaviyo is here to help brands communicate, engage, and foster relationships now and when all of this is just a distant memory. Visit klaviyo.com, that's klaviyo.com/leaders today. Can you give us some insights into some of the actual experiments and how you set up the process as well for anyone else that's going through like an early stage concept and wants to hit the kind of dizzying heights of a bulb experience in the first year of actually being a startup that hits the numbers they said they would?
So what we did was we just had this massive brainstorm. We had this long list of ideas and we just went out and experimented with them. The one experience that I would share, the thing that we learned going through that process that is probably written in the book, but I just didn't pick it up, is to focus on growth ideas that are repeatable and scalable. So visiting a company canteen and setting up a stall and trying to sell there, probably not the best sales channel, because if it succeeds, you're just going to then have to employ hundreds and hundreds of people to go and stand in office canteens. And the rate at which you can test and learn on a sales channel like that is just nowhere near as good as advertising on the internet or on search engine advertising or social media advertising or referral marketing. And so what we found at the end of the 12 months was that the more digital scalable channels were much more, they were the experiments that we should run first. The other, actually, there's two lessons that I'll share. The other lesson is I was doing our search engine advertising at the start, and I had my old boss from Bain, who had when I'd left to start Bulb, Joe had left and joined Google, and I called Joe one day and I said, Joe, I know you keep on telling me over a beer that like Google provides an incredible service, but let me tell you, it's no good for us in our business trying to sign up customers. And he just sort of, I told him a little bit about the experience we were having. He just said, Hayden, you're just not doing it right. And then when they were very kind, they advised us on how best to spend all of our money with them, and ended up making it work. So the other tip I would say is, like, don't, in the interest of experimenting, you do need to discount things and say they don't work, but make sure that you do a proper experiment and give something a proper go. And in my case, I hadn't done that. We realized at the end of that first 12 months that we could actually grow faster than the 20,000 customers a year that we had planned. So at that stage, we begun planning another funding round, and this was growth funding, because we'd reached break even. We knew that we weren't going to lose all of our investors' money, which is a relief. But looking at the unit economics of our customers, we knew that if we added more capital to the business, we could add customers faster and make the business more valuable and help more people lower their bills and lower their carbon emissions. So it was at that point that we then did our second funding round. We were aiming to raise £5.7 million in that round. And the idea was to spend it on customer acquisition and technology. And we went to a lot of VC funds at that time, and they all said, we haven't seen an energy business before, doesn't look great, we're going to pass. So it was in that second round.
I'm super surprised. I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, we couldn't convince anyone. I think if you're an investor, you're looking for patterns, and you look for things that you've seen in the past succeed. So a lot of people were investing in e-commerce and fintech at that time, and that's what they were. That's where their money was going. But we got a series of high net worth individuals to invest at that stage. I think that they liked the fact that we had done what we said we would do in our first funding round. That was apparently, I didn't realize this, but that's quite unusual. And a lot of those individuals liked our mission. They liked the fact that we were a slightly different business, and they liked the traction. They liked the fact that we were signing people up. So that was, when was that? That was in sort of early 2017, that second round. And then again, it's just remarkable. The team did an incredible job at that time. We deployed that capital. We delivered on the plan that we did. We did what we said we were going to do, and we grew to 300,000 customers. So we added another 250,000 customers in the space of 12 months, which was like 10 times faster than what we thought we would do in our original business plan. And then that gets us to 2018, when it was kind of like a carbon copy of 2017, but just on a bigger scale. We raised £60 million. And this time it was from there aren't many angels that will write us a £60 million check. So we went to two institutions, and they were, by that point, I think we demonstrated the sort of results that Bulb could have as a business.
I'm almost not surprised you struggled to raise money, because if you keep going to them, pointing out that you can deliver on plans and make money, no wonder they don't have a model for that. They're not used to that kind of thing. You turn up, promising to get a return on your profitable or break-even business. That's almost disgustingly insulting to a venture capitalist.
I think by that point, Amit and I had really, we had much more clarity on the 10-year mission and goals for the company, and investors could see the scale that we wanted to achieve. They could see the technology that we'd built that was really different from what other companies were using, and so there was more. There was more of a reason to invest at that stage. So yeah, that's the last funding round we did. So we haven't raised for a couple of years because Bulb was being able to reinvest profits that it's making from existing customers into the growth of beer.
And do you have any plans to do any future fundraising? Or I'd imagine, weirdly, even though the valuation would be obviously outrageous, I could so see you guys as a crowdfunding, community-led or customer-led round. I guess the ship has almost sailed on that, but yeah, totally. I mean, I would buy into that. I could really see it as the right kind of brand for that.
I think there's ways in which we could do it. We would love to give our members an opportunity to invest in Bulb. I think there's things that we can use the funds for, which would have a direct effect on carbon emissions. So if our members could invest in Bulb and we could deploy that capital for renewable energy projects, then that would be a really good relationship that we would have with those customers. The other thing that would require capital in the future would probably be international expansion, which would be another reason to raise more funding. But yeah, I've really enjoyed the last 2 years of not fundraising and focusing on the operations of the company and how we can deliver better service to our members and make a better product. That's where we spend a lot of our time.
Fair enough. Let's go on to you as a leader. Obviously, you came up with the typical background in going into consulting, and then, you're starting a business on a spreadsheet, and by hook or by crook, you're coming across remarkably meticulous. First person I've ever heard of creating a plan and achieving it, for example. And bear in mind that I've interviewed almost every single major founder in the UK. That's not the normal story. So are you a perfectionist? What kind of leader do you think you are? Has that developed over time? And how do you handle failure and when things aren't going so well? How do you think you present yourself to the world and the team, and how has that developed?
Yeah, so this is where I think I have really struggled, to be honest. I found this job I found very difficult, and I feel like I'm really just at the early stages of my learning on how to do it. I think I do have tendencies to be a perfectionist, for sure, and I think it's helpful sometimes, but generally unhelpful. I think that you're always striving to make something better, to add value to a process, to improve things, to make the product experience better for customers. And that drive, I think, individual drive gets you a long way at the start of a company, but it can become unhelpful when you're leading 800 people, which is now the number of people that work at Bulb, because you have to not let that perfectionism get in the way of excellence. And sometimes you don't need to, sometimes one particular thing within the company is okay as it is, and you need to focus your energies elsewhere. So that's one of the things that I'm personally really, really working on and trying to learn and improve and exercise. I think the other thing that's really changed for me personally is, as you say, like quite meticulous. I used to pride myself on being able to understand everything within the business and go from the minutiae of the indentation of type on our website all the way up to strategic fundraising discussions. I guess I remember reading the Steve Jobs book when I was on holiday once, thinking, yeah, this is what you got to do, right? You got to obsess over the kerning on fonts. And that just doesn't work for me, and hasn't worked for me for the last year and a half, 2 years probably, because it's very difficult for other people to work with someone like that. So I've gone from being a leader of a small team of 6 people, where I sort of had a direct relationship with everyone, to then being a manager of managers, and now I'm kind of like the manager of managers, and in doing that, you have to change the way you are. You have to change the types of conversations you have with people, and you have to trust people, respect their judgment, give them give them the time that they have in their jobs to execute their plan the way they want to execute it. And yeah, that's been a massive learning experience for me over the last couple of years.
What is an example of the most challenging leadership crisis, or that might even be personal confidence crisis that you've experienced in your business? Because it's a lot of scale in a short period of time. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of customers. It's a lot of growth. So, there's a lot of up and to the right. And I guess, any rational person is going to be, conflicted over how you're making decisions over those times and how disagreements and relationships will impact you. So what are some of the highlights that you can give as almost stories or warnings to other founders that might go and experience similar things, to give some insights from how you overcame them?
Well, there's one particular problem that we had as a company that was extremely important to us, and it took us a really long time to work out how to solve. So after taking the third funding round in 2018, we grew rapidly. We grew so quickly that the service that we were providing to our customers started to get worse. So we were slower to respond to emails and answer the phone, and that was really bad because we'd founded Bulb on the principles of providing outstanding customer service. And so I saw this big problem for the company and got really involved in solving that issue. And I went about it with all the numbers and I basically screwed this up. I worked out in a model, like the best way for us to provide service. And then no one else in the company wanted to do it. It was like really scary. The solution to this in the end was, do you remember that person that I talked about before that worked at Google who said, Hayden, you're doing it wrong on search advertising? We managed to convince Joe to leave Google and join Bulb, and Joe for the last almost year has been leading Bulb UK and has, along with his excellent leadership team, has solved our service issue, a problem that I could not solve. And on that one, a couple of times, I hope Joe doesn't mind me talking about this publicly, it's quite personal conversations that we had, but a couple of times Joe said, look, just back off, let me do this. And it was against every instinct in my body to back off, because this is a thing that I've just I've been involved in everything from the start. But I did, I think, and Joe and the team did an incredible job, and now Bulb is providing the best customer service it's ever provided at a time during lockdown, which is really an extraordinary achievement from Joe and the team. And that meant that ultimately I just had to, as he said, back off.
And how's your relationship developed with Amit then over the time? Are you guys, do you guys have a different relationship? You were friends, and I'm also curious, I guess, in my own personal experience, I've also started, my company with one of my best friends, our third actually. And so, I understand that relationship tends to develop quite differently from a traditional friendship. But even as co-founders, how has that developed over time? Like, how do you spend time together? How are you handling lockdown apart? It'd be great to get an understanding of that.
Yeah, I think it's really, you have to really invest in it, in the relationship. And I think that Amit and I have made a deliberate effort recently to spend more time together, to debate things much more, because now we're two members of a 10-person leadership team. And I think it's good to go back and have spend time when it's just the two of you. So we've been making a concerted effort to do much more of that. And I think that's actually been really, 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 really helpful. The other thing that happens is, because there's just so much more going on, you end up like dividing stuff up between the two of you, because you need to have two one of you will take one thing, one of you will take the other, and that's that's a more efficient distribution of or allocation of your time. But then that does mean that you maybe don't work together on things as much. So I've really enjoyed working on those things together more.
Heights make a fully sustainable, natural smart supplement designed for mental performance and cognitive longevity, which is trusted by many of our Secret Leaders guests, including the founders of Calm, Moonpig, Mumsnet, Planet Organic, WeTransfer, Shazam, and the list goes on and on. Listeners to Secret Leaders can level up their brain power and get 25% off their first month with the code LEADERS at www.yourheights.com. Obviously, building a startup, let alone building the fastest growing scale up in the UK, that often takes quite a toll on people's mental health, physical health, family life, sacrifices, the works. What do you think has been your experience of that? Like, what would you say have been your sacrifices, and how have you actually handled staying in shape mentally and physically?
Yeah, so I get depressed. That's the thing that I've experienced since. I think the first time it happened to me, I was in my mid-20s, and then having a quarter-life crisis. And then it happened to me again a few years after that. And I've had 3 really bad bouts of depression where I was on medication and going through therapy. And that's made me much more aware of my mental health and my physical health and the relationship between those two things. And since co-founding Bulb, I've always been very, very careful with my mental health. But I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying. It's exhausting. The pressure is, unrelenting. I think that without the support of my friends and family, and especially my wife, Flora, I would not have been able to. I wouldn't have survived this.
Have you actually had any bouts of depressive episodes during your period with Bulb?
No, I haven't. I've seen the early warning signs of it, and I've really managed it carefully. But ever since that first time when I didn't really understand what was going on, and it just got worse and worse and worse. Ever since then, I've been really lucky in that I can sort of spot the signs where things aren't right, and I've managed to avoid it. But yeah, I think it. One of the things I think I want to talk about. I think people need to talk about more is the pressure that this puts on the people around you, on your on your partner, on your family. Like it's really hard for them too. And you read about Bulb's growth, and you think, oh, what a success story! Everything must have been plain sailing. But I've made hundreds and hundreds of mistakes, and I feel terrible about that because it has impact on people's lives, people's jobs, people's own mental well-being, and so I kind of carry that load really heavily, and I find that to be very, very difficult thing to do. But also such a privilege to be doing this job, and I think we do. Whilst it is pressurizing, I think what we try and do is have some fun at work while we're doing this.
Right, and I think you make such a great point as well. Just discussing the pressure. I mean, ultimately, 1 or 2 wrong moves, and people lose their jobs, their families. Like the amount of having failed a startup myself, having to let go of 48 people. What that feels like, and it is a highly depressive scenario because people are relying on you, and you feel it. And you feel like you've let people down, and it really sits with you for quite a long time. And like you're saying, when you've got 800 people to manage, one wrong decision might wipe out 400 jobs. Equally, if it's the right decision, it might create 800 jobs. But that's a super stressful reality to live with. And it's a really interesting psychological dilemma that, anyone going through your kind of growth that, naturally is going to face. I think it's a really important thing that you're highlighting it.
One of the things, just hearing you say that has made me, reminded me of something that I was talking about my therapist a few weeks ago, which is that you think that all of the decisions that you're making have that effect, and some of them might, but actually very often you're getting very nervous about these decisions, and you can't pick between A and B, and so you end up spending a huge amount of time and mental energy trying to do that. And actually, the reason it's hard to pick between A and B is because the results in both situations are kind of the same. And actually, you can invest a huge amount of worry and energy into these decisions, and it just doesn't matter. You just pick one, and don't let it feel so heavy. So that's one of the things that doing this job, you're constantly making these decisions, and it's sort of training your brain into thinking, if you make this decision, it's going to have this result, and actually you have to kind of challenge that assumption regularly.
Yeah, as a good example of your ego being your worst enemy, when actually, it's trying to protect you and trying to protect others, but ultimately giving you this sort of sense of grandiosity, of importance that doesn't necessarily exist. Before we move on to, some of the higher points, I mean, just, whilst we're here and sitting in the memories, again, like, it's important people understand the roller coaster journey that it actually is behind the scenes. What have actually been your lowest points or hardest points on your journey at Bulb then?
I would say it's very often communication, when I'm communicating things to the company, and I answer a question, because we have these weekly Q&As. I'll answer a question in the Q&A. I'll give a bad answer. I won't have taken something into account. Those feel bad because you can have a bad effect on people with those things. I mean, really specifically, there was a moment last year when we would, as a service business, we wanted to provide service to our members on the weekend. And it was just very, very hard to make a shift from our team just working on a Monday to Friday to providing service on the weekend. That was one of the most difficult experiences of my life, because we knew where we wanted to get to, but there was such a difference between me and the other people in the company. Again, it's one of the remarkable things about where we are today, is that now we provide service at the weekends, and people are really happy about it, and it's a great result. But at the time we weren't there, and it was really, really hard.
Well, I guess, a good opportunity for you to reflect on the upsides as well. So, that was one of the harder moments. What have been the really positive ones that you want to reflect on that help you glow at Bulb?
I mean, there's so many. When you see people find their métier and enjoy their work, that's probably the happiest moments for me. There's a woman that works at Bulb called Erin Bullions, and she joined Bulb out of university. And she's an incredible person, incredibly talented, such wonderful ethics. She's a great motivator of her teams. And to see Erin just be promoted, time after time after time, and now leading an entire sort of division of people within the company makes you really, really happy to think that you and a bunch of other people have created an environment in which people can have that type of job. And for me, I really enjoy work. I think that work is a really fun and rewarding part of our lives, and to create a place of work that fulfills that purpose for other people is really rewarding.
Okay, what's been the worst decision or mistake you think you've made as a CEO, and what do you think you learned from it? Obviously, learning's nothing, but what was your worst mistake?
I think it's what I was talking about before, this announcement where we said, look, we're gonna move to providing service on Saturdays. This is how it's going to work. We now spend a lot of time thinking about communication and how it cascades within the company, so that there aren't just these announcements that come from me or other members of the senior leadership team, and instead they're more gradual, and they're shared in one-on-ones and within teams, and then there's a message that comes from the company. I think I'd always sort of thought, oh God, this stuff just takes up time. Why do we need to spend time thinking about change? Can't we just make a decision and move fast? And that wasn't the right way for us.
Do you think that the pandemic's been quite good timing for you, in a sense of, sounds like it sort of coincided roughly with the weekend working vibe, and frankly now there's so much change that everyone is forced to handle, whether they like it or not. It's almost like a good time to be managing changes that are happening in a business anyway, as people start to understand how to adapt.
Looking at the way the team at Bulb responded to the COVID lockdown globally, is, I have so much admiration for what the team did with that. On the 13th of March in the UK, we closed the office. We were providing remote service to our members on the 14th. I think it was the company's finest hour to make that transition at such speed. We were, during lockdown, even the early stages, we were able to provide, there was no increase in wait times for our members. We created completely new products for Bulb members in vulnerable situations who weren't able to leave their homes and top up their prepay energy cards and things like that. It was, the company turned on a sixpence, and it was just incredible to see the shared purpose and resolve from that team. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I would rather there hadn't been a lockdown, and we've had lots of exciting plans that we've had to mothball. But seeing the response from everyone on the team to that was really quite inspiring. I think one of the things I didn't appreciate when Amit and I were founding Bulb was the importance of our company's mission in attracting just outstanding people to join the company. But for us, the mission was just important for us personally, and we thought that it would be meaningful to create a company that was going to solve a problem just for wider society. But what I didn't realize was that would then mean that we would be able to recruit wonderful people to work in the company. And then those wonderful people, respond in the way they did during lockdown, which is in a caring, considered, really, really heartwarming way.
Right. Almost wrapping up now. I've got to ask a couple of hard questions for you, but, Are
you telling me that the other ones haven't been hard?
Yeah, these have been easy. No, in fairness, these are only hard because they put you on the spot, which I think is probably your least favourite thing, is what I've ascertained from our interview together. The first is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? Is it, if you're deserted on a desert island, bring a bath?
Don't take a bath. One of the things I do, by the way, is seek out as much advice as I can possibly get. There's people that have seen it and done it before, and they're extremely generous with their time. Actually, that's one of the best bits of advice that I've got I've received is to not be shy about asking people for advice, because they will share it very often, and it's very, very helpful to receive it.
Okay, and then the final bit is, what's the best piece of advice that you have for entrepreneurs and leaders that are listening in today? So not something that you've learned from a family member or other brilliant mind, but just your own classic book of Hayden Wood.
Oh my God, good grief. This is just a mistake that I've made. So I'm sharing it. Be open to different solutions to different problems. And as a founder, if you have a bit of success in the first few years, you can begin to think that you're always right. And that is a very dangerous sort of mindset to be in. So be very open to being wrong.
Dude, thank you for your time.
Great to speak to you, Dan. Thanks for having me. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. It was brought to you by me, Dan Murray-Serter, producer Rich Martell, editor Harry Morton of Lower Street Media, and marketing by Hannah Russell of Mags Creative, and stunning visual design by our talented designer Christina Naru of smartupvisuals.com. You can check out show notes, transcripts, and our upcoming live events on our website secretleaders.com. If you've not yet, please hit subscribe. Leave us a review, tell a friend, take a screenshot of this episode and add it to an Insta story. I mean, you know what to do. And tag us at Secret Leaders or at Dan Murray-Serter, and we'll add you to our story in appreciation back. Rich and I put together Secret Leaders for free because we love our day jobs as entrepreneurs, but every time someone takes the time to share it, it means a lot to us. So don't forget, it's the little things like that that keep us coming back every week and every year into the studio. See you next week. 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 See